Hi everyone, my name's Jeevan. I'm an architectural assistant at JTP, and I'm going to give you a quick insight on how to make a portfolio for your undergrad applications at London South Bank University. So the first thing to do is to look at the LSBU requirements. So this can be accessed on the website. So I've put in a little QR code on the bottom right hand side of the page, which will take you straight to the architecture portfolio guidelines. But the first thing to think about is your portfolio should only contain a maximum of 10 images that represent your creative and technical ability. This is just for the actual digital application for the first part. The second part would be an extended kind of portfolio. And the things you might want to consider for both is things like sketches and drawings, freehand kind of ideas or process work, paintings. Everyone always loves to see some paintings and also some mixed media kind of things. One of the issues or things that come up when applying to architecture courses is that you should be having architecture drawings or architecture models. However, that's not the case. Universities are um, I guess then they know that we haven't done or you guys haven't done any architectural kind of work before, and they're aware of that. And what they want you to show us is the work that you've done, whether it's in art or product design or any other extracurricular activity that you've done. So there's a range of kind of things that you need to start thinking about, from art forms and styles, things like photography. What type of photography do you like taking things of? Is it buildings, more specifically looking at materials, shadows, tones? So start looking into the different themes that you can extract from all the photographs that you've taken over your years of or studying or years of traveling. The next thing is also looking at some physical models. Maybe you might have done some modeling in the past, whether that's in art or even in product design or 3D design, whatever type of kind of subject you've done in the past. And what they want to see there is your workings out. So whether you've done some initial drawings to kind of sketch out the ideas, and then how that's kind of come to the final fruition of the final design. So start having to think about these things. And what I always tell to students is to get all your kind of work that you've done so far leading up to your application into a document, whether that's into a presentation or just onto a Word document for now. And that then you can start mapping out where these different types of work are arranging within a presentation, whether you split it into themes, whether you split it into projects, also into mixed media. So start having those considerations and thoughts. So to begin with, I'm just going to go through the basics, and some of you may already know how to do these type of things, but there's a couple of different types of portfolios. There's an online one, which you tend to and usually apply through UCAS. When you apply through UCAS, you'll have to send firstly your personal statement and your grades and your application. You then will be asked for an online digital kind of portfolio where you then would then go in person after that when you get to the next stage to go with your physical portfolio, and that usually is slightly larger. But to begin with your online portfolio, you could either within a template I've got here maybe 10 to 15 pages. With London South Bank, as we can see, it's 10 pages. And what they tend to ask for is it being as sorry in a PDF format, so keeping it quite small in terms of file size, but in this PDF format. And this can be created in either Microsoft PowerPoint, if you have that access at school, or even Adobe InDesign if you do already know how to use it and also have access to the license at school as well. If you don't, you can also use Google Slides, which is a free kind of format online, and also Canva as well, which is also free. But like I said before, speak to your college or sixth form regarding whether they have the resources to help you out. The next comes down to a physical portfolio. So once you have made it through to the next stage of the portfolio submission, you may either be given an offer straight away or be asked to attend to an interview. And with this interview, it's always good to take your physical portfolio with you. And what that means is that when you're looking at all your work, it's not just a 10 to 15 page document, it could be a 30-page portfolio at any size you wanted. And that will show all your kind of work and your workings out in that process. And this would be a larger format, which I'll go through the next page. But you'll also take your journals and your sketchbooks with you. And what you tend to know when I've had interviews in the past is that you'll be describing your work from your physical portfolio, and the interviewer who's asking you the questions will be flicking through your sketchbooks as you go along, and they might not be listening to you, but actually they are, but they're also just wanting to see kind of your story and your process and the narrative behind all your work. So keep that in mind when you're at the interview. The next is looking at kind of what page size do I use, and what you choose really. So A0 doesn't really get used. It's quite big to transport around, and um, it's quite a faff really to take to interviews in person. So you don't really use an A0 kind of portfolio. They tend to usually be around A1 or A2 size when it comes down to the physical portfolio. When you're going to that in-person interview, you might also want to purchase a portfolio case or holder. I know that some colleges and sixth form may provide them as well. And it just means that it's just easier to travel to university to have your interview. And it also keeps everything kind of clean and tidy. When it comes down to your kind of your sketchbook or your journals, you might also have an A4 or A3 kind of size or format. And these are always good to have, and you can easily flick through them. But also, if you did want to print your portfolio off at A3, then that's also doable as well. The next is quite simple, but it's also something that I've picked up along the way whilst also having a look at other students' portfolios, is how to lay your work out. And it seems quite simple, but also you're not, it doesn't come to people straight away. So a quick disclaimer, the yellow borders, you don't have to put that down. It's just to show the space around your work. Please don't use a yellow border. But the first thing is to ensure that you have an equal border around all your slides of all your pages. This should stay consistent on every page of both your online portfolio and your physical one. It just keeps the portfolio really tidy and really easy to read. What you'll get out of this session is that the more simple you keep it, the easier it is to allow the reader to see the drawings and see the work that you've done. Let the work that you've done, let it read and let it speak for itself. You don't need to be laying things out in crazy ways to make it look exciting. Sometimes one simple image on a page is a lot more powerful than loads. The next thing is layouts. So begin by placing your work on the page and ensure that they are in line with each other. So that's also something that we keep in mind, is making sure all your photos and all your images are in line with each other, just to keep it nice and clean and concise. Try not to have images crossing over or overlapping. This is a common mistake that I find in a lot of portfolios. It's something that really distracts the reader when they're looking at your work. And also sizing, finally. You may want to lay your work out where images are equal in size, as they may all equally be important. Or you might also want to have one which is a bit larger, as it's better or more important a piece of work than others. And this comes down to hierarchy of a page. So, for example, if one page is one sheet, sorry, or image is bigger than the rest, which you can see in the bottom left or the bottom row, for example, my eyes are straight away drawn to the biggest image on the page, and that should be your most important image, or the image that you want the reader to look at first. Um, so we'll move on now to the next part, which is font and text location. So I guess once you've decided on your layout of your portfolio sheets, you can then decide on where to locate your text and description of work. The description should be no longer than one line and could state a few things. It could have the name of the piece of work, a short description of the work, the materials used, or even a short line reflecting on the story behind the work. It's completely up to you, but I would say to keep this concise and also consistent through each of your pages. So whether it is looking at the short description, you keep that following through to each other page. The type of font and the size of the text really matters. You don't want it to distract the reader away from your work. For this reason, font sizes should be kept small and minimal. Text should also be located in the same place for every slide, ensuring that it's not distracting or overbearing, like I said before. So you can see on the images on the right-hand side, the description of the work is either on the left-hand side, the bottom left, bottom right, or the middle. So have a think about that. It's always important to kind of keep these texts and the titles of the work quite concise and consistent throughout each page. I've also seen that going wrong in other people's portfolios, where they'll have a massive big kind of um, piece of text or title in the middle of the page, And that's the first thing I look at. It shouldn't be. It should be your work. That's the first thing I look at, and the text accompanies it is secondary to the page. Secondly, image quality. It's always best to scan your work in on a scanner, and you could probably use something at sixth form or college where it's a big A3 kind of printer, but you'll have a scanner on top, and that is used to gain the best quality images. Is if you don't have a scanner, there are free apps you can download to do this as well. Otherwise, you can photograph your work yourself. If you are trying to photograph it, a page or something, try to get a high enough over it so that the image is flat and not distorted. Also, try avoid to have shadows in the photograph, as this can distract your image. Make sure the photograph is in good quality. But also, if you did a lovely kind of painting or kind of canvas painting, think about the context of the photo and think about whether you can create some sort of scene or like have a bit of scenery in the background. So if it's something of a painting of a countryside or a beautiful landscape, think about whether you can um, set the image up in or the painting in an actual landscape or in an actual countryside setting, and then take a really nice photo of that and think about the composition of that photo because it's always quite powerful to do that. So the next couple of pages, I go through kind of my portfolio page examples and what I've done in the past. Some go through, I guess, my A levels and then also how I applied to university. And there's a couple pages in there I think that were also used during my undergrad as well. So don't be scared of the work. They're all at different kind of levels. Um, but the most important thing is looking at kind of the layouts and the way the font and the text is laid out basically. So this is one example that I had. So there's a couple of things that I've done right here. Looking back, I probably could have improved some things, but also the first thing is hierarchy of images. So as you can see here, there was one big image, and I placed that at the bottom of the page, and then I accompanied this with four other images, which all kind of had the same themes going on. It was about looking at collaging and overlaying different types of work, um, looking at the city, how we can overlay and kind of compose these images in some sort of way. So looking back now, I probably would have put the bigger image at the top of the page, and that meant that I would have been able to read the page a lot better, really, and have the image, which is larger and the most important kind of final piece at that top. However, I did some correct things as well, things like the simplicity of the font and text location, so instead of having a massive description for each kind of image, because I'd grouped them all in terms of themes or also mixed media, sorry, um, the description is really simple. So I'll read it out quickly. So various mixed media experiments exploring layers of both UK and international urban architecture. So it's really simple, but it also, number one, it gets across what type of like what kind of themes I use. So it was mixed media, and it was experimenting. And the kind of theme of the whole page was looking at layers of exploring layers of both UK and international urban architecture. So it's looking at the what and the where, and how I've done it through mixed media. So you can kind of go off those kind of, I guess, descriptions and triggers with the who, what, where, or why, or how even to really get that description quite concise. And like I said, the similar styles of work that have been paired together on the portfolio sheet. And this is something you can take in your own portfolio. I've helped students in the past where they've been really passionate about painting, but they've done loads of it. But then within the paintings themselves, there's different themes that arise, and sometimes I struggle with showing so many paintings in different ways. But we start to group them in different themes, whether it was looking at tones and shadows, whether it was looking at composition of the page, whether it was portraits and portraiture. So there's loads of different ways you can really think about your pages and how you lay them out and how you group them in a deeper way. But you can see here I was looking at kind of collaging and perspective and overlaying and mixed media uses. There's probably, looking back now, I could probably have photographed these images a lot better. I'd say the top middle two are probably the best ones there. When it comes to the top right and the top left, I haven't really thought about composition, lighting, the view, and what I'm trying to extract from that image. And even with the bottom kind of bigger image of the final piece, it was a pretty big drawing. It was like a banner size, so I couldn't really scan it in. but I could have thought about maybe composing the image a bit better, whether it was me framing it and putting it in some sort of urban scene with some nice buildings from in London in the background, so that I could have my painting in the foreground and kind of compose that scene a bit better. So looking back, that's what I would have improved on really. The second one is a much more simpler kind of page. It's you don't always have to pack out a portfolio page and really um, get a bit anxious on not showing enough. Sometimes less is more, and sometimes just having a really simple page like this really speaks a lot to, I guess, number one, your confidence in your work, but also how proud you are of showing the work off. So even if it was just one image on itself, it's always good to have. So in this one, the first thing I thought about was the hierarchy of the image. Naturally, I'm looking at the right hand side because of the size of the image, and that's how easy it is to sometimes control the reader's mind and where they're looking. The second is the simplicity of the font and text location. So once again, it's really short description of just saying fine liner and pen studies, searching for perspective. And once I kind of said that to the person who was interviewing me, they were intrigued to know more. So I was able to kind of describe the drawings and the sketches a lot further. Maybe I might have extended that kind of description, looking at maybe textures, contrast in shadows and tones, materials. So there's loads of different kind of buzzwords and keywords that you can chuck into a description really to kind of draw that attention to the work. The next is equal borders around the page, so you can see that I've managed to keep that really simple. And also all the images are in line. And I think that's one pet peeve us architects have when looking at work is, and also designers in general, is that a lot of images sometimes when they're laid out on a page aren't in line. And that's something that really throws a reader off straight away. Even if the work's amazing, if images aren't in line, it really bugs us. So that's something to keep in mind. Um, Another one is images are either scanned or well photographed with equally distributed lighting. So I'd say here that I did photograph them. Looking back, I probably could have done it better. I also probably would have maybe scanned them in instead. They were all photographs, so looking back, I would have scanned them in. And I think that's one trick and one kind of um, benefit of having good work is that if you're able to scan it in and photograph and get these kind of captured in a really high crisp and high resolution manner, the work really says itself. So for example, the top the right hand side with a bigger image, it's difficult because it looks a bit blurry and pixelated, so that's something I would have improved on in the future. And finally, we're looking at another portfolio page. This is from my undergrad degree, where I studied at Central St Martin's, and now I'm at London South Bank University for my master's. But the reason why I put this this portfolio page is because um, if you did do some models or you did do some in your college or sixth form, they're always good to put in, no matter what kind of quality they are, no matter how finished they are. This wasn't the best model I've ever done. I mean, it took me a while to do, but it wasn't the best. Look, you can see there's wonky walls, wonky windows, things that are not done properly or finished, but they were still really good to show. It was still really good to show because it showed how I was able to work with different materials at different scales, at different details. Um, Looking at the interior images, and it's quite nice and clean. So another reason why I put this in is the way I've managed to capture these photos, and I give props to myself, even though I was a first year student, is that I was able to get these photos with a nice kind of clean background. That's always something to keep in mind when you do take photos of your work, and you might have your model or something, whether it's a product or a building, and you might just take a picture of it in the workshop in your art class, but try and compose the photo, whether you can get a nice white background with a massive A0 kind of white piece of paper, or even a different color, but just try and capture that photo properly, whether it's using a DSLR camera or a simple iPhone camera as well. Is really good photos. Um, so yeah, and also make sure you have good lighting. So you can see on the image on the right hand side is that I've tried to create some sort of atmosphere or mood and manage to get my phone inside the model and get that light coming through those windows. And that's really powerful to do, especially in architecture where we really appreciate models and also kind of visualizing those spaces. So that's really something really to think about that when taking pictures of your models. Another thing is just to once again create a clean layout. That those are two simple photos that I put on a page, and this page was actually at A1, so these are really big images. But I wanted to show the models off. I wanted to show that I spent time on it and I'm proud of it, and I want you to see what I've done. And even though it's not the best type of work, I was able to show it off as much as possible. And sometimes two simple images of the work, whether it's an overall image of the building or the model that you've created, and maybe a close-up detail, that's always a lot more powerful than having eight pictures of the same model on a page. But you can also see there, I've also got a short description on the page where I've just said what year it was in, so I just kept that in bold to just keep it just to split up my pages, because in this portfolio I had all my work from my other years too. But then also it was just a short two-line description saying sectional model of the plywood workshop and internal view of the model, using balsa wood, grey board, polycarbonate, and concrete. So it's really simple, telling you what materials were used and also what kind of what's the model of, what is it of basically. So that was telling you that. So I wanted to finish it there. First of all, thank you for having me today to talk through this, and also good luck. If you do have any questions, speak to the London South Bank University admissions team. You'll be able to watch this back, and also you've got the QR code which takes you straight to the portfolio page for London South Bank. And if you do have any questions, like I said, speak to the admissions team. But if not, good luck. I'm sure you all do very well, and hopefully see you at London South Bank very soon. Thank you.